What's happening, everybody? This is Smitty from DetroitManagement.com. I know it's been a minute, and a lot of people have been waiting for another review, but I'm back, and, I'm going to go over some things. Let's just be honest. The Lions got a long way to go. I got to start with Martin Mayhew. The way that he handled this year was not satisfactory. It's difficult to point the finger at just one guy, but since we're talking about Mayhew, the way that he drafted wasn't all that. I think that Riley Reef and even Ryan Broyles are going to be pretty good pros in the NFL and good players for the Detroit Lions. But let's just be frank. They didn't have a big enough impact on this season. I'm going to just make my way right down the list, and I'm going to go ahead and start talking about Jim Schwartz. The biggest problems that I have with Schwartz are two things: character and his clock management. And the character issue, that comes from what type of coach you are and the pedigree that you're going to give your players. Now, I'm not saying that Schwartz can control everything that happens off the field and during the offseason. I don't even think that's really an excuse for you to go 4-12. Injuries were a factor. That's still no excuse. Some of the effort that was put out was an issue, and all of this falls under discipline. It's not that he's a terrible coach. I just think that him getting another shot is not really going to make or break his tenure with the Detroit Lions. Your windows for winning championships are small, and the Lions aren't even climbing up onto the windowsill just yet. He doesn't hold the players accountable. Now, I don't know what he does behind closed doors, but that's a big issue. The other thing is clock management, and that's just something that, good coaches do, whether it's in football or any other sport. So if he can clean that up, don't get me wrong, it was better this year than it's been in the past. Game in and game out, year in and year out. It's been 4 years, and we still see bad clock management on both sides of the football, whether it be timeouts, whether it be with the throwing of certain flags at certain periods of time, knowing the rules. A lot of these things are backfiring on Schwartz. When it comes to the coordinators, I think Gunther Cunningham and Scott Linehan, to me, should stay. That's just me personally. Danny Crossman, bye-bye. I think he should have been gone. Earlier in the year when they lost those 2 games to Minnesota and Tennessee, I think it should have been curtains for that a long time ago. Now, don't get me wrong, the special teams played better outside of the play of Stephon Logan, but, I think that you got to call for a head every now and then. Gunther is really doing what he can with the pieces that he has in place. I think he needs an elite pass rusher or an elite defensive line. The secondary is still not complete, and it probably won't be for some time because the only real consistent, legitimate DB you got is Chris Houston. That's if you bring him back. Louis Delmas is okay, but he's got to stay on the field. He still makes some plays, but again, the guy's got to stay healthy. And you got a shuffle of guys at the other safety position, the other cornerback position, and your nickel slot. The linebackers aren't great, but they're just not good enough. I'm not going to completely evaluate every single player on this video, but, I think Gunther is doing a pretty good job with what he has. The defensive line didn't have a great year, but they had a better year. There are going to be times where they're not going to be able to get pressure, and somebody in the back seven is going to have to make a play, and the Lions just weren't able to do that. That's why I believe that Gunther should be able to keep his job. Now, for Linehan, he's a little bit more borderline. I do question a lot of the run plays that he runs, and his chemistry with Matthew Stafford is really what's key. Again, I think both of these coordinators coach to a level of expectations where they expect these players to be able to make plays and execute. Unfortunately, the Lions just don't have a lot of these players in place. And that's on both sides of the football. Firing all these position coaches and unit coaches, it only does so much. Some of these guys probably should have been gone a long time ago, but I think the scouts need to go too. We'll get to that in the draft. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to make a prediction right here and right now. I don't think that the Lions will fare much better next year. You got this free agent situation that's getting ready to come up. You don't know how much better your quarterback is going to be because, again, he's somewhere between his sophomore and senior year. And you have the tale of 2 seasons where he's throwing for so many yards, but a lot of touchdowns, and then you turn around and you do the same things with a lot of yards and fewer touchdowns. So there's a lot that has to go on. And if everything goes right, I still don't see it just turning around magically. But that's a little bit on Schwartz. And that's why I'm giving him a bit of a leash, because I feel like at the end of the day, he has to have some success, face adversity, and then bounce back from it. That's a reason to not fire him. So I'm not saying I'm taking either the side of the fence. I'm going to play devil's advocate. I want to give him another shot, but I'm going to be honest with you. At the end of next year, 8-8 or less, you out of here, buddy. You know, I like the guy personally, but as a head coach, you got to do more. Now, on Matthew Stafford and his mechanics issue, a lot of people think it's just simply the sidearm and the 45-degree angle throws. I beg to differ. Those kind of throws are going to happen. I think the bigger issue is his footwork, his presence in the pocket. Some of you might just immediately say, he doesn't have a good enough offensive line. Getting rid of the football is not his problem. He has a quick release. Yes, to me, the sidearm and 45-degree angle throws are an issue. There's a little bit too much of it, but it doesn't make or break him. I think his biggest issue is setting his feet and delivering the football. If he can't stand within the pocket or move within the pocket and set his feet and throw the ball, I don't feel it matters how the ball comes out of his hand. I just don't like the fact that he ignores it. But what can he say? You know, is he going to come out and say, yeah, I got to come out in the offseason and correct my mechanics? No, that won't even sound right from a first overall draft pick. So I respect his reason for saying his mechanics is not an issue. But this offseason, he needs to work on it. Whether it be his footwork or his delivery. It needs to change. I don't care if it's going to the Peyton Manning and Eli Manning camp and working on it. Watch film on Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. Matt Ryan has good mechanics. If he gets his feet right, everything else will fall into play. Mark my words. Better form in throwing the football with his arm will pretty much just result in not getting the ball batted down. But, you know, the turnovers for Matthew Stafford and everybody else didn't really help the team. So, you know, even if Stafford has a good year, that's still supplementing for the lack of accountability for the rest of the players on the football field. So, you know, accountability is going to be important, and it has to start with the free agent market. That's where the offseason is going to start. So, mark my words, that is going to be a circus alone for your Detroit Lions, because you got guys like Lawrence Jackson, Willie Young, and Cliff Avery who are free agents, and this is just an example. You're going to need a defensive end, like it or not. Yes, we need a safety. Yes, we need a corner. But to be honest with you, you still need multiple corners. You did draft 3 last year. We still got to see where some of these guys are at. I would rather develop defensive backs than to sit back and continue to struggle with a defensive line that can't get to the quarterback on a consistent basis. I remember Jerry Reese won 2 Super Bowls with drafting the best player available. That's the same philosophy that Martin Mayhew has. The problem with drafting the best player available is the Lions haven't drafted the best player available. I think that goes back to scouting. You know, you got to look at the players all throughout the draft. The draft may not even have that good of a class, but you still need impact players to start on both sides of the football. As sad as it sounds, you still need a kick returner. So, you know, what are you going to do there? It's just issues all over the place. So, you know, I'll just run out what I think the Detroit Lions need. I think they need a guard. I think they need a center. I think the center position is important because you're going to have to develop a guy, and it's not too many guys that you just bring in and start at center week 1 of a brand new year. So even if Raiola does come back, I still think that you have to find somebody to develop. Now, this is in no particular order, and I'll continue. Defensive end is still going to be a position of need. You need a linebacker. You know, we have young linebackers, and I don't even know if DeAndre Levy's a starter or not. You can find a guy that's better than him, I'm pretty sure. But it's not like I don't want Levy on the team. I'm not saying that. Even if he does start, do you upgrade Justin Durant, who's also a free agent? I'm not sold on Stephen Tulloch being the future of the Detroit Lions playing middle linebacker. So to me, any of these guys are replaceable with the linebacker draft pick. Of course, corner is obvious, but again, you know, the more and more positions I add, how many corners are you going to draft this year? Still need a safety. You still need speed at running back. And I'm the type of guy, I believe that you draft a running back until you have at least 3 legitimate players. Because you're 2 snaps away from 2 running backs going down. But we were fortunate to have the running backs that we have stay healthy throughout the year. Of course, Mikel Shore had his suspension at the beginning of the year, and Joyke Bell was a pretty decent pro. I'm pretty satisfied with those 2 guys. You still don't have a lights-out guy that's going to take it to the crib. So those are your picks of where I think they should go in the draft. And outside of that, terrible season in turnover. I think the Lions were somewhere around -14 in the turnover ratio. Yes, that has to do with defense and primarily Matthew Stafford turning the football over. He threw too many interceptions this year, and that's on him. But to be honest with you, the previous season that he had, 41 touchdowns, it really tipped the scale. And it still exposed the rest of your football team. And that's the problem. So, moving forward, hey, we got a long offseason to go. I hope you're ready for this ride. Again, I'm Smitty from DetroitManagement.com, and I'll holler at y'all.